So hi everyone, welcome back to another SUPboarder video. In this video we're going to be talking about what gear do you need to get yourself into wing foiling, whether you're going to be starting off with a non-foiling board but really transitioning onto a foiling board eventually. We're going to do this series in two parts. This part one, we are going to be talking about the wings and everything you need to know about when you're buying your first wing and the stuff definitely you need to be aware about to make the right decisions for you. In part two, we're going to be looking at boards and foils, making sure you're looking towards the right size boards and the right size foils for the conditions you want to go wing foiling in. So make sure to check out both parts, but let's crack on with part one and wings and what you need to know in this video. So this video is going to get you fully up to speed on what you need to know to buy or even use your first wing. Now we've been using wings and wing foiling for just over a year. We were foiling a bit before that. We very much had the first wings that came out to market, and yes, we are a stand-up paddleboard website, but we do concentrate in this sport because a lot of the stand-up paddle boards do cross over into this wing foiling discipline. So on one hand you could say we are experts, but on the other hand I would say we are not experts because the market is changing so rapidly when it comes to the design, the characteristics, the features and feels of these wings. So in this video I'm really going to explain what we've found, what we know, what we've noticed over the last year. But bear in mind, in the future, if you're watching this in 2 or 3 years time, you might find some of the feel and the characteristics of these wings has crossed over or changed slightly. Now whether you're starting out straight away, first time with a proper wing foiling board, or maybe an inflatable paddleboard, an all-round paddleboard, the basics are still the same. You're still going to want to focus on these key points that we're going to speak about in a minute. So you can look at this maybe as you start winging just on a basic inflatable paddleboard right up to performance, foil, surf riding, any sort of discipline that you want to go into with your winging. So now the things we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about the wing sizes, the wing shapes, the features and the fittings that come on the wings. Maybe you're talking about handles or booms. And then we're going to be talking about the conditions and the type of disciplines that these wings work best in. So first off, wing sizes. Now wings are available in lots of different sizes. They're all measured in square meters, very much like kite surfing and windsurfing. The smallest wings that are on the market start around 2.5 square meters and they go right up to 6 square meters, maybe even 7 square meters. The most popular sizes are sitting around the 4 square meters, 5 square meters and 6 square meters. Definitely they're the ones you're going to find most on the market, and you will find most maybe when you're coming to look secondhand. Now generally the bigger the wing, the more area there is, the more power you're going to get, and also the more stable that wing is going to feel, opposed to a smaller wing which might feel a little bit more twitchy and it won't give you obviously as much power as a bigger wing would do. The downside to a bigger wing, it is a heavier wing and it's harder to move around, and obviously the smaller wings are much lighter and much more maneuverable. So what sort of wind strengths can you get up with what size of wings? Now this does come down to a few things. Obviously it comes down to your body weight, your ability, the size of the foil you're going to be using, but we're going to speak about more of that in part 2 when we're looking at boards and foils. For an average person, you will find a 4-meter wing will get you going in about 12 to 25 knots of wind. The one thing I will say about wings and the wind window you can use them in is if you've done any sports like kite surfing or windsurfing, there is a big wind window that you can use these wings in. I can quite happily get up at a 4-meter wing in 9-10 knots, which is relatively low, to up to even 35 knots. I've used a lot of wind with a wing of that size because it's very easy to sheet out, to park, or to put in its resting state where you're just holding the front handle and let a bit of the wind use the wing, but you're not actually using very much of the power. So you do get a large wind window with these wings. As I said, average size of wings, 4 meter to 6 meter is your average size. Me personally, at 75 kilograms, I love a 4-meter wing. I can get going, as I said, in lighter winds of about 9 knots, maybe even a little bit lighter if I'm using a bigger foil. And definitely if you're a heavier person, you're probably going to really like an average 5-meter wing as your all-round wing. A wing of that size can let you do lots of different types of disciplines. Obviously, if you're using it as a sport to get going in light winds opposed to wind windsurfing and kitesurfing, you're going to be looking at the bigger wing. But just remember, there's one more thing when it comes to winging without a foil and with a foil. It's always better to be using the smallest wing you can get away with. So if you can wing on a 5 meter opposed to a 6 meter, that will be a better wing. It will be easier for you to transition and jibe and move around in the air. You haven't got so much length of the wing isn't so heavy. Definitely look at smaller wings if you can, and ideally in most conditions always use your smallest wing until obviously you're not on the foil or you're not being able to stay upwind. And just to answer a quick question which we know we're going to get more of about if I buy 2 wings, what sizes should I buy? For an average weight person of about 85 kilograms, a 4 meter and a 6 meter is a really good combination of wings to look at. Get you going in those lighter winds with the 6 meter all the way up to 15 knots quite comfortably, and then you can transition onto the 4 meter to take you right up to the 25s, maybe even 30 knots, a big wind range, and you'll be really comfortable on those 2 size wings. Okay, so now let's move on to shapes of the wing. We're going to talk about 2 things here. We're going to talk about the outline overview shape of the wing. Is it a long thin wing? Is it a short fat wing? And we're also going to talk about the profile shape, which is looking down the wing at the wing shape itself. Is it a curved wing? Does it have a dihedral? Is it a flat wing? Because that will all affect how it feels in the air and with you holding it. So first off, looking at the outline shape of the wing. High aspect ratio wings, which are slightly longer and thinner, opposed to shorter and fatter wings. At the moment, a lot of brands are doing a combination of the both. They might have a more compact center, but with slightly thinned out wingtips, which makes it a bit of a compromise between the 2. But the real thing you've got to remember when it comes to shorter, more compact wings opposed to longer wings is that basically it's easier to learn and get up and to control a shorter, more compact wing, definitely at the more beginner stages. For example, if you have a longer, more slender wing, the wingtip may be catching and dragging in the water, because remember, you're not on the foil yet, you are at very much at water level. So a shorter, fatter wing will be much easier for you to use and move around if you're not foiling. If you're foiling, and especially if you're foiling on a really high mast, which is the part of the foil that keeps you out of the water, then obviously having a longer, more high aspect ratio wing won't be so much of an issue. But remember, when it comes to turning and transitioning, you're having to rotate your wing around. That is when having longer wings can be a problem, maybe, and can even catch in the water, even if you're using it with a foil. More high aspect ratio things in general, whether it's kites or foils or whatever you're looking at, they generally are better for more performance. They generally work better at controlling speed, but they're usually a bit more less controllable. So for instance, when we're holding it in the resting state, or we're holding the wing, just letting it fly in the air, a shorter, more compact wing generally will be more stable and will be easier for you to worry about getting back on your board. It'll be easier about you trying to get to your feet, opposed to a longer, slender wing with a more high aspect ratio. It might want to turn and rotate a little bit more in the air, which then means you obviously have to focus on the wing and getting to your feet. So just remember, the outline shape of wings will change a huge amount, I think, over the next few years, and there will be a big crossover between high aspect ratio and short, more compact, low aspect ratio. We might find certain wings are better for certain disciplines, maybe even like sprint races, course racing will be happening with foil boards. Maybe high aspect ratio will be better for that, and maybe for surf, freestyle maneuvers, we'll be looking at more low aspect ratio. Time will tell with that, but just bear in mind, a shorter, more compact wing is definitely easier to use when you start off, when you're foiling or non-foiling. So now let's talk about the profile of the wing. Now the profile of the wing we can see when we're looking down the wing. So we're looking at it from, and we can see the top and we can see the bottom, very much how the wind will be approaching. Some wings have a flat profile, some wings have a curved profile, some wings have a reverse profile where they go out the other way. Now, whatever profile they have does change the characteristics, the performance, the usability of the wing. And also there's the amount of shape in that profile. If some of you maybe seen the review we did a couple weeks ago of the Ensis, we spoke about how that had a lot of profile because the gusset, the area back here behind that main rib, is rigid the whole time. So it has a big camber. If you're coming from windsurfing or sailing, you have a camber in the actual wing, a shape that's preset into that wing, opposed to a wing maybe like the Armstrong, which is a flatter base wing. It can flatten off and it can spill all of its power and get rid of its camber. Again, just like the overall shape, looking at compact shapes opposed to high aspect ratio shapes, there's going to be lots of combinations of the two. But if you're looking at a more entry level wing that's more controllable to use, especially in its resting state where you're holding the front leading edge or you're parking the wing, you're going to want a wing that's very controllable and easy to use in that resting state. Generally at the moment we're finding flatter base wings and definitely less wing dihedral are a lot more stable. The wings that have more dihedral or more profile in certain ways generally will give you a little bit more performance, maybe a bit more power. They will be better at doing maybe things like freestyle tricks or really pushing to the more extreme side of the sport. But they aren't so forgiving at that lower end performance, or as I said, when you maybe want to be catching waves and parking your wing. Now remember, with everything we buy, there's always pros and cons to every single product, and that's pretty much what we do at SUPboarder. We try and highlight those pros and cons to make sure you buy the best equipment for you. For example, with these less profile wings with less camber, the flatter wings, they may be light and easy to hold in the resting state and great for getting you up in lighter winds when you're beginning. But bear in mind, in the higher winds, they might become a little bit more of a handful. Maybe the wing might struggle in gusts and really start to pull your arms out. And also for the wings with more profile, with more camber, more shape, you might find that they have more power in lower winds. You can get up in lighter winds. You might also find that they are more controllable when the wind gets up, when it's in gusty conditions, because that profile is keeping its shape and letting the wind pass through that wing in a very stable manner. But at the same time, they might be more technical to use when it comes to you learning to do your tacks or jibes. They might be a little bit more fiddly to turn around and rotate around to do those transitions, opposed to the flatter wings. There's always pros and cons to every single wing. One more thing I want to highlight on wing shapes before we move on. Now, we've taught a lot of people to wing foil and non-foil over the last year, and we've taught them on a lot of different types of wings, and you can learn on all of these wings. You can learn on every single wing on the market. Just like I said just now, there's always a compromise. There's pros and cons to every wing. For example, I taught Lucy to wing foil on a duotone, the original duotone foil wing. It was a 4-meter wing. It's a great wing. I still think it's a fantastic wing. It's a boom to wing, which we'll speak about in a minute. It has loads of power. The downside to that wing is it's quite an uncomfortable wing to use in its resting state. And definitely when Lucy was starting off, it definitely became a bit more of a handful and harder for her to use. But she loves that wing now. She's only 6 months down the line. So a very quick transition to getting her into wing foiling. That wing is still her go-to wing. She's very used to using it. So it just shows you that whatever wing you do buy, at the moment there isn't any real dog wings out there. There's no real bad ones. But definitely when you move on into certain disciplines, which we'll speak about in a minute, there is wings that really do set themselves apart from each other. Whether you're looking at flat water all round, surfing, freestyle, there is a big difference in the wings. So now let's talk about the features of the wings. Now I'm not going to be talking about the bags and stuff like that. I'm talking about the wings themselves. The most standout feature that you will come across and have to decide whether you want to go down this way or the other way is whether you want a window or not in your wings. Now windows, when we first started off, we did find windows incredibly valuable to learning and making sure you know where you're going and making sure you're aware of other water users. But as we've moved on and got more experience, we definitely find having a window is less and less. And also we find the benefits and the design benefits of not having windows much greater in the wings themselves. At present, windows do set a certain compromise to the structure of the wing. As the wind pushes on the wing, it stretches, and the window stretches at a different stretch rate or movement, and potentially in a different direction than the other ripstop nylon, than the other material that's in the wings themselves. This again will change in the future. Certain brands, like for instance Armstrong, I know have got much smaller windows made out of different material than other brands on the market, and maybe in our SUPboarder Pro test we might totally reverse this conclusion because of wings like this. So for more performance driven riders out there, having smaller windows or no window is a better wing, will give you better performance. Again, this a caveat I've just said at this point in time. This may change in the future, but not having a window in your wing is a real pain when you start off, especially if you are winging in a busy area with lots of boat traffic, other wingers, surfers, buoys in the water, whatever it is. If you haven't got a window, it is a real pain. You are going to have to lift up the wing, look under the wing. Yes, it can be done, and I can happily use a wing without a window, no problem, but it does make a difference when you start off. It's another thing that you're going to have to think about and potentially worry about, and if you are in a busy built-up area, I would really advise looking at a wing with a window. Now, the second biggest thing you need to think about when it comes to features and buying a wing is how you're going to hold on to it. What sort of facility have they given you to grab your wing? Is it a boomed wing like the original duotone? Is it a wing, again, go back to this Ensis, with really big handles? Is it a wing with multiple handles, maybe like the Nash S25? How many handles has it got? Are they in the right place? It does change the wing's characteristics, and it does change what you want to do with your wing. For instance, if you wanted to get into freestyling, I definitely find having a boomed wing or having a wing where you can hold the wing in so many different places. Also, I'll bring in the Ensis style wings with their longer handles. They're much easier to just grab and just move your hand around and tailor it to exactly where you want to hold it. When it comes to multiple looped wings, again, like the S25, the Nash, or the Ozone Wasp, they're great because they have handles everywhere, but you still are constrained to a little bit of that where you have your handles opposed to a boomed wing. Now, when it comes to understanding where to put these handles, the way that we understand it, and we'll happily take some criticism back if we've got it completely wrong from you, the designers out there, is that we get the idea that most wings are designed around a certain person size. So the handles are put on those wings for certain people. Therefore, if you're a lighter paddler, let's say I know 2 or 3 ladies out there that struggle with certain wings because the handles aren't quite in the right place, but I can use that very same wing and say the handles are bang on perfect, exactly what I want. And therefore, there's an argument again for having more handles, bigger handles, or potentially a boom, because in that sense, there is no argument between are they in the right place or not, because there are micro adjustments that that person can make to trim that wing exactly where they want to have it. Now, the handle thing and the boom thing is definitely something that will change a dramatic amount over the next few years. I'm not 100% convinced which wing is best for me yet. I love the boom. I love being able to move my hand up and down the boom and tailor, do micro adjustments to trim that wing perfectly. But I also love the bigger handles on like the Ensis. I love having the rigidity of the loops on some of the handles. I love having the handles that cross over onto the main rib, like you find on some of the slingshot models, like you find on the Ozone and the Armstrong. They give you that optimum performance to trim yourself in that way that a boomed wing can't do. So to put all that into context of what I've just said, when you start off non-foiling and foiling, the most important thing is that when you go to grab your wing, in whatever state you are, maybe you're doing a jibe or a tack, or you're just getting up on the foil, or you're getting back up on your feet, you're going to be able to have to grab something. If you're missing handles, or you're having to focus on looking at your handles to grab a certain handle, it does put you off. Therefore, starting with a wing with more handles, bigger handles, a boom is easier to start for sure. Definitely you do get the hang of it, and whatever wing you do go for, you will soon understand if my front hand is on this part of the wing, then my backhand needs to go here to reach that handle. You will soon grasp that, so it's not a huge thing, but definitely if you start off, more handles are better, bigger handles are better, so you can grab something and get yourself going, because you don't want to be worrying about where your hands are, you just want to be able to grab something and go. We'll touch a little bit more on handles in a minute when we talk about the conditions and the disciplines that they work best in as well. But now moving on to packing them down, how small do they go? Well, this is quite an easy one for you to work out. You either want a small compact wing, or you don't mind a wing that you have to roll up. Generally, the wings you have to roll up, like the duotone, like the Nash S25, which is falling down here, a little bit like the Armstrong, it compacts down a little bit more. It's all to do with the window. You can't end up folding windows because you'll end up putting a crease point in the window, and the material that a lot of the wings are made out of, maybe this might change in time again, the material at the moment, a lot of the wings are made out of, when they get creased and they end up getting folded and squashed, they can put a weak point in where the PVC material is creased, which is why they roll a lot of the wings up. So that's the downside with windows with wings. You got a bigger bag. Definitely smaller wings with smaller bags, like these Ozones, the Cabrinas, the F1s, the Ensis. There's loads of other wings that can go in that category. It's really nice to have a small compact wing. Maybe you could take it with you when you are supping. You could go and do a little overnighter. You could do a downwinder. There's so much you could do with a small compact wing. I just want to quickly touch on leashes. It's something that we do talk about, and we definitely do bring it into the SUPboarder Pro test. We do look at all the leashes. My personal gut feeling is I'm much happier with a sort of webbing style leash. I feel it's more secure. I feel it's not going to break. They do also come with more surf-based style leashes. They're coiled leashes, and they actually come with non-coiled leashes as well. I find those good, but I'm just a little bit mentally a bit more aware that it's a bit of plastic opposed to a bit of nylon that's sort of been woven or sewn together. So I'm a little bit more cautious about if my wing's flapping around in the wind, as potentially it might break and it might just fly off down the beach, and there goes my 800 bucks quite quickly. Now, I'm personally a real believer is as soon as your wing is flapping, just try and get it on your hand as much as possible. Don't rely on your leash too much, but it is something you need to look at, and I've no doubt again leashes are going to change dramatically in the next few years. Getting the right length leash, it's a very personal thing, and it's a very easy thing to change. Even if you buy a wing with a pretty dodgy bad leash, you can upgrade, you can make your own leash, as long as you've got a good quality leash that you're comfortable with, that doesn't get in your way, that attaches you to your wing, so when you do let go of it or get in a major crash, you're not going to lose your prized possession. Okay, I hope you're all learning something and taking something away from this, and it's not just me rambling about rubbish. But now let's talk about the conditions and the disciplines you're going to be using your wing in. Now, a lot of you out there be like, I've no idea what conditions or what discipline I'm going to be using my wing in. But within the first few goes, I think you will start to be pushing towards a certain discipline, or you might be thinking of using your wing in a certain discipline. For example, we get lots of people messaging us on SUPboarder. They live in the middle of inland, they're not interested in surfing, they maybe want to get into foiling, but they're obviously going to be doing it on a lake. Well, you are going to be a flat water or a freestyle winger eventually. You're not going to be really interested in the waves. Therefore, you could definitely rule out or cancel out quite a few wings that would be better in the waves, and you could look at wings that maybe give you more power in lighter winds and potentially be better for freestyle. At the same time, there's quite a lot of surfers out there that are wanting to get into winging to get waves early. Yes, you're going to have to start on flat water, so you're going to be an all-round winger to start, but you are trying to progress into that surf sense. You want to try and catch waves. Now, a lot of wings out there for you, you're not really going to be wanting a freestyle wing. The wings that you're looking at maybe won't produce loads of bottom end power, but they're going to be really controllable, really comfortable in their parked or resting state. So let me just give you some information and some wings that you could fit into certain categories. If we look at all-round wings, freestyle wings, and wave wings. So the easiest one to categorize first is actually surf or waves. This is a very simple one because you basically need your wing to get you up on the foil. You are going to be foiling when you're talking about in the surf. I have non-foiled in the surf and it's a lot of fun, but most of you out there will be using a foil. So you're going to be talking about getting yourself through the waves and then riding the waves back in. And when you're riding the waves back in, you're talking about holding the wing out on its leading edge, parking it, let it just sit there, and you're talking about carving up and down and surfing the wing just on your foil. Therefore, you're going to want to have a wing that's incredibly stable in its resting state. Very easy to hold and park there. So you're going to be looking at wings like the Ensis, like the F1, like the Ozone Wasp, like the Armstrong. There's a lot of other wings which I'm going to say, but I'm not 100% sure about yet because we haven't done them fully in the SUPboarder Pro test. So you're looking at a wing that's incredibly stable in the air. You are not looking for a wing like the original duotone foil wing with the boom, that is a complete opposite. That is a wing that wants to move around and wants to rotate. No matter what they say, it doesn't work as well in the surf as those flatter or the wings that have less profile, less angle to their wingtips. Also, when you're surfing with a wing, you're going to want a wing that's relatively light and relatively small as well. Therefore, the F1 is a beautifully lightweight wing, very narrow in the wingtips. It makes holding it in its resting state really easy. And when you're actually holding it and surfing, you can almost forget that the wing is there. And that's really what you want when you're surfing. Doing any board sport, you want to just be focusing on the board itself. Whether you're windsurfing or kite surfing, you want to forget about that other element and just use that board to really link up your turns and get the most out of the wave. But on the other hand, if you're looking a freestyle wing, which is still a very technical wing to use, you're still going to want loads of power. You're going to want a wing that's really easy to control. It gives you loads of power. It's very rigid, so when you're doing your tricks and your maneuvers, it's going to be there and pull you out of that situation and get you back on the foil as quickly as possible. That is where wings like the original duotone, the duotones with the booms, are exceptionally good. Having the boom gives you so much more control to micro manage where you're putting your hands, to go in transitions. You can go one-handed, you can use and tilt the whole wing around just by using one hand on that boom. That is also where using wings that are stiffer, wings that have got more stiffness to the main leading edge and the main rib, are going to be better, because you can hold on to something, you can force your wing in a certain position, and you know as soon as you force it in that position, the wing is going to follow the position, the angle that you're forcing it in. Those sort of wings that are rigid and stiff are really comfortable for you freestylers out there. The downside, as I said, the resting state, generally for those wings, not all of them, like the Ensis, but definitely the duotone, they're a little bit less comfortable. They're not really designed to be held and parked. They want to be powered up, they want you to be on the boom, they want you to be locked in or controlling the wing during the maneuver. Freestyle as well is similar like surf. You're still going to want a relatively light wing, and the wing needs to be relatively small because you're going to be moving it around, rotating it, putting it in spins. The smaller, more compact wing, the easier it is going to be to do that. So now let's talk about all-round wings, and we'll also bolt flat water wings onto that as well. So you're going to want a wing that's going to get you up in light winds, because you're probably going to be inland, you're probably not going to be out at sea, you're not going to have swells to help you get on the foil, you're going to be on flat water, so you're going to want a powerful wing. Therefore, it potentially is going to be a bigger wing than if you're out in the waves, and if you're doing freestyle, you're not worried about moving it around so much, so you can get away with a bigger wing. You could potentially get away with a wing that's less comfortable in its resting state and when you're parked or when you're holding that front leading edge, because you're only going to be transitioning onto that wing when you just start off, and definitely when you're on the foil. There's not going to be many stages where you're going to be holding that in that position on flat water or for general all-round winging. And therefore you could look at a wing that's got a bit more power, maybe it's got a bit more shape, maybe it's like the original duotone, maybe it's not so happy in that resting state. But as I said, it doesn't matter. You need the power, you want a stable wing that's easy to get you up and going and get you powering up on your foil quickly. The other thing you might end up doing and getting into, because it's a very natural progression, is actually jumping, because jumping is a very easy thing to do with a foil, because you're basically surfing on a pogo stick. You can just bounce up and down all day long, and getting air on a foil is incredibly easy. So a lot of the bigger wings, they're going to have more profile or more shape, more wing area to them, let's say. They're going to have them better at glide and flight. So you might be a flat water winger or an all-round winger, but you might find going into jumping is the sort of thing you might playing around with, and having a bigger wing with more shape, maybe that's going to help you jump a little bit more as well. Now you will find that wings will change a lot over the next 3 to 4 to 5 years. There's been a little bit of development since 2020, since we did our last wing tests and some of the SUPboarder reviews which we've had on the main SUPboarder site. Really, we're going to have a really good understanding about what's happened when we've done this full SUPboarder Pro wing test. It's really good and amazing to be able to use a lot of these wings back to back in the same conditions with the same foil and board. Let me stress that one as well. It's really important that if we're testing something and we're testing the wings, we're keeping the foil and the board the same that we're used to using, because then we've got a datum, we just switch and move the wings up, and then we can give a really good feel about how early, how much power, how well upwind that goes, what is it like catching bumps, how is it in that resting state. It gives us a really good understanding of what wing is best and what wing will be best for certain people. So definitely, if you're interested in buying wings and you're not signed up to SUPboarder Pro, maybe even sign up just for the month for that SUPboarder Pro wing test. It's going to be very good. It's going to be very interesting. We can't wait, and it's going to give you a lot of information to help you understand which wing is right for you. This video, I hope you found really interesting. I hope it answered some of your questions. It might have been a little bit more technical, but we want to make sure we give you enough information. Definitely look out for part 2, which will be out in a couple of weeks, where we're going to be speaking about the boards, the volumes, the sizes, the shapes, and the foils. Again, the shapes, the sizes, what sort of thing you should be looking at for what sort of size and ability of person. And we really hope these videos give you the best information so you buy the best kit and have the best experience, because that's what it's all about. We really hope that by the end of these videos and with other videos that we've produced on SUPboarder, you make the best buying decisions to give you the most fun on the water. Thanks very much. Please subscribe, comment, whatever you think, let us know, and we'll see you on another SUPboarder video soon. That's the downside of Windows. No, that's the downside with Windows. So that's the downside with Windows with wings. No, so that's the downside with wings with Windows. God, I got there in the end. So that's the downside with Windows with wings.